What is going on, people of the internet? My name's Hyperchaotic, with a K, double R, and welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time visiting my channel. And in today's video, I kind of want to do a quick, right off of the top of my head, retrospect of Phase 1 and 2 of the MCU, and just look back how far we've come when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Or, not we, them, but still, it has come very, very far. Now, I'm going to be speaking from the opinion of just a regular casual fan, primarily an MCU fan, rather than like a Marvel fan in general, because I've never gotten really too heavy into the comic books. In fact, I was too broke to even casually buy comic books, let alone had any in my area when I was a little kid. Recently, I've been trying to get more into comic book lore, either by looking at videos of comic book lore or getting into the comic books themselves, if I'm able to figure out the name of the specific issues and where within a said timeline, knowing how comics are sometimes, they are within it, whether or not I need to get some extra context from another series of comics and then get context from another series of comics for that one. That did, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but for me personally, that's one of the struggles when it comes to getting into comics for me. That's one of the things that really prevents me from really checking out a lot of the past MCU comics and even DC as well, which is just how convoluted it is, just following their primary timeline or storyline if it crosses multiple timelines or universes. That's just, I don't even want to get into the complications of that at all. But yeah, I'm just going to be speaking from the perspective of a casual MCU fan. The most Marvel I've ever gotten outside of the MCU is any of the animated stuff. A couple of games here and there a couple of games here and there within my past, and that's about it. And the X-Men films, I always forget they're Marvel. uh yeah, anything else that was Marvel but not officially MCU, that's another exposure that I've had to Marvel. But other than that, um I'm not gonna take those into consideration when talking about Phase 1 and 2. I'm just going to be speaking from the perspective of a casual fan of the MCU. Nothing more, nothing less. I might mention some of that stuff here and there, depending on the film, compare and contrast maybe, but that's about it. It's mostly just my perspective as an MCU fan on the MCU. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and just get into the first film from Phase 1. Iron Man. Is anybody else getting a little bit of nostalgia when they just look at the poster? No? Just me? I don't know. There's something about that time that was, I don't know. I wouldn't say better. It definitely wasn't worse. But I don't know, I guess sort of better times. Some people might just say it was because you were a kid with not too many responsibilities. Perhaps, maybe. I don't know. But I remember seeing Iron Man, the film, and just thinking, like, oh, this is cool. The Marvel superheroes getting official live action films. I wonder if they'll ever do this for any of the other Marvel superheroes. Many phases later, well, we know the end result. And Iron Man, it was a really good film. I'm not gonna lie, it was a pretty good film. Just, I know a lot of people didn't like the way Tony Stark was within this film. He was very, very arrogant and narcissistic, but that was kind of the point. That was kind of the point of his character. And as we would see later on in the future films, he would just kind of develop out of that narcissism and that arrogance. So yeah, that you didn't always like some scenes, some parts of Tony Stark, but that was kind of the point of his character. Is he started off as a billionaire playboy, arrogant narcissist, who made his money selling weapons that did lots of damage to people, probably innocent people, probably a lot of infrastructure that people needed, and try to turn it around, make a super suit, and became a superhero. I mean, I'm pretty sure we all know what's up with Iron Man, and it was a pretty freaking good film. The action was enjoyable, uh, and of course, this was before they brought on uh, Don Cheeto to be War Machine, or Brody, as he's known as, and they had, I forget the name of the other actor. And then when they switched it around in Iron Man 2, I was really confused because I didn't understand why they switched them around. And I remember hearing a while ago why they switched them out, but I can't remember. So even now, I still kind of really don't know. Regardless, I enjoyed Iron Man, and it was our start into the MCU. The Incredible Hulk. So a lot of people look back at this film and they think like, wow, this film didn't really hold up that well, or wow, this film held up pretty alright, better than kind of I remember it, but it's still pretty like mediocre. Or also saying stuff like, this film at least did more of the Hulk than what the MCU is doing right now, and I I personally would definitely agree with that. And for me personally, when it comes to this film, I actually enjoyed it when I was a kid. I think I would probably say this for a good chunk of Phase 1, but mainly The Incredible Hulk and also Iron Man, but mainly The Incredible Hulk. I would say I definitely have a soft spot for those films, even if some parts didn't age well, or in the case of The Incredible Hulk, people think the film itself didn't age well. And I'm not talking about like um, CGI wise, just in general. Personally, for me, I enjoyed it then. I still kind of enjoy it now. Yes, I could see its flaws in why it doesn't work for some people, or why it doesn't work in certain objective ways. But subjectively, I still enjoy it. I still enjoy the film, um, partially due to some childhood nostalgia. And yes, I did just say objectively and subjectively. Regardless of what a lot of people say, I personally agree. You can look at media in an objective and subjective way. And when criticizing media, you kind of gotta you gotta go both ways when criticizing it. You can't just lean one way or the other. Otherwise, you just end up with some broken, unfair criticism. But yeah, I think personally, sometimes you just gotta look at films objectively and subjectively. You gotta have a balance between the two. And objectively, as a film, as a story, I can see the flaws in why in some parts it didn't work or didn't work for others. But for me personally, I still enjoyed The Incredible Hulk. Iron Man 2. Um, I think just like with the Thor sequels, people did not enjoy the Iron Man sequels very well. But again, since I did grow up with some of these films, I do have somewhat of a soft spot for these films. And say what you will about the villain of this film, um, well, I thought the superpowers were cool. Uh, his motivations I don't remember at all. His very character I don't really remember at all. I remember how the actor looked like, how he sounded like in the film. But the Mandarin, or the guy who was the Mandarin, was for the most part pretty much forgettable. Honestly, he was kind of forgettable. So I could definitely understand people's gropes with this film for sure. But regardless, there were a lot of fun scenes and fun moments in this film, to the point where, like I said, I have a soft spot for this film. It narrative wise, it didn't do too well, especially with its villain, but it's still a very fun film that I like to check out every now and then. Once again, because it's, hey, this was early Marvel, early MCU. It is what it is, and for what it is, it was still a very fun film. Thor. Man, again, I did still kind of like this film. It was decent, but I'm not gonna lie, Thor 1 was kind of forgettable. I mean, some of the dialogue for Thor was good and was memorable. It definitely set up his character very well. Some of the scenes with him and Loki when he was on Asgard, those were memorable, and they definitely did a good job at setting up Thor as a character, Loki as a character, and just kind of building up to what will happen to them in the following films. But for the most part, I think this is where, for me, some things started to definitely get a little bit more forgettable. Captain America, the first Avenger. Man, a fun action superhero World War II film. We're probably not going to get one of those for a very long time. I mean, hell, I wouldn't be surprised if people are sick of World War II media in general, between films and games especially. Like, if you were to look at a list of just all the World War II video game titles that are out there, there are a lot. Like, a lot. I think you would be surprised to be able to find a developer who hasn't tried to touch World War II in some way, form, or fashion. I'm primarily thinking about first person shooters, but there just are a shit ton of World War II games in general out there beyond just shooters. And then media in general, from just, I don't even know where to start. There's just so much World War II media in general. But when I really look back, I don't really remember too many World War II superhero movies. At least in the same sense, the same tone that we got with Captain America: The First Avenger. So, for being the one of its kind, it was definitely a fun film, and some moments were definitely memorable. But it's another origin story. It's another superhero origin story. It is what it is. But you definitely really get a sense of Steve's values when you watch his film, and what he what he cares about, what matters to him as far as values. I mean, all these that's what all these films are. They're superhero origin stories, building up these characters, representing who they're supposed to be at the beginning of the stage, of the phase. So, what else are you to expect from these films? They are what they are, and for what they did, I think they, for the most part, did it well. And for the most part, I still enjoy them nonetheless. But yeah, Captain America, the first Avenger. It would have been nice if we got a little bit more with Steve Rogers being in, in World War II Europe. But I don't know. I think you get more of that, and I think Peggy Carter's show, because I remember there being a show of Peggy Carter uh, back during the 1940s and 1950s. I've never checked it out. After I heard about it being on ABC, I just completely forgot about it because I wasn't really that interested in it at the time, or even now. Uh, yeah, it is what it is. For what it is, I like it, and it's the only World War II superhero film that I can think of that exists, at least within modern day cinema. Avengers. I mean, man, it was all building up to this. And regardless if you saw it in theaters or had to see it at home or you had to yo ho ho that motherfucker, oh my god, I think we can all say for sure we all enjoyed this film. I remember when the film just dropped, a buddy of mine was talking about it. We were in line waiting to get into school, and he was kind of spoiling it for me. But with the way I was kind of picturing it, it wasn't exactly how it turned out in the film. In fact, I kind of thought it was a bit better. And I'm always one that's had a bad memory, so I'm not always very good at remembering spoilers, anyways. Like, depending on the spoiler and depending on the show and what you're spoiling, it might stick with me, and I might be like, "Fuck, man, it ruined it for me. It ruined the surprise. It ruined the build up, the suspense, the drama, whatever the case may be." But more often than not, when I've heard a spoiler for any sort of media, by the time I finally check it out, I don't I don't remember it at all. But I might still remember the hype I felt when hearing about it. And when he was talking about it, I was getting a lot of hype to see this film. So when I finally saw it, oh my god, I was by myself watching it, but regardless, it felt like an event. It probably would have been even better had I watched it in theaters. From what I constantly heard from people, the Avengers films would have been perfect to watch in theaters because they were just such an event. But regardless, it, it's the fucking Avengers on the big screen. I loved it. We all loved it. And even to this day, whenever I happen to catch the film, just playing in the background of some TV whenever somebody else watching TV, I'll sit down and watch for a little bit. Sometimes all the way to the end because hey, it was just that much of a good film and a good time. All right then, on to phase 2.